HBO's new show, Euphoria, is a rising sensation on social media as it breaks new boundaries showing teen drug use, sex, and unhappiness. And it really gets into the psychology of the modern teen in terms of alienation in the social media era. It's also a great show for transgender representation, as Hunter Schafer, who is transgender in real life, also plays one on the show. It's it's part of its success is that it coincides perfectly with the release of Spider-Man: Far From Home, as its star is Zendaya, who is on her way to being a superstar. So the show is very strong stylistically, and I do like the performances of characters like Zendaya and Schaefer. However, I feel the fact that it does feel like one big, large music video is part of the problem. I feel like it comes a little bit too close to glorifying drug use and promiscuity for teens. And even though the show is airing on HBO and has an adult audience, I do feel like a lot of teens will find a way to watch the show. And I'm a little bit worried that they could idolize a character like Zendaya's character Rue, um, because she is incredibly cool in the show. She's kind of the coolest kid in town. So I just don't like the message that it seems like the message of the show is that being on drugs is like this amazing euphoria feeling, and then when you crash, it's terrible. But even that message, it almost says that it's almost worth it to crash to have the feeling of being on drugs and having this amazing fun night. And I just don't like that message because I would prefer that teens get the message that being on drugs is bad all the time. Addicted to drugs, it'll ruin your life. And I do feel like it comes just a little bit too close to glorifying what it means to be on drugs and to feel like you're climbing the walls. At the end of the first episode, Zendaya and Jules, they have a nice moment where it's obvious that they've made a connection and that they're going to be friends. And without drugs, they would have never had this connection. So it's definitely a positive outcome that they were on drugs that night and had this fun night. And I just don't like attaching positive outcomes to drugs like that. I also have some issues with its depiction of sex. For example, the character of Kat, she kind of starts the show as kind of the token virgin on the show, and she's kind of has the most overweight of her friends. And the show seems to imply that it's not normal in 2019 for a high school girl to be a virgin, and that it's kind of an outdated idea. At one point, the character of Jules is like, "You need to catch a dick immediately." So by the end of the first episode, Kat basically finds the first guy she can, and she loses her virginity. So I don't love that message because it kind of sends the message that high school girls have to rush, and that instead of waiting for the right person and waiting for someone who would be meaningful, to just find a stranger because just to be socially normal, you have to be having sex at that point. So I just didn't like the message that sent. Another scene I didn't love in the first episode is the character of Cassie. She's hooking up with this boy McCain, and the message seems to be that because McCain grew up watching porn videos with choking and other unrealistic stuff, that he starts choking Cassie, and he starts getting rapey, and she kind of tells him to stop, and kind of he apologizes, but then she kind of says that her only problem with it was that he didn't ask first, and she basically implies that she's going to let him do it, meaning she's going to let him choke her and be rough with her now that she knows it's coming. And I really don't like that message, and it's a very very outdated one. The idea that girls like it rough, and that girls you should try to be physically push them physically, and I just don't like the idea of teens seeing that, and if they get in a similar situation, instead of immediately running out the door and leaving him behind, that if the guy slows down and apologizes, that you're supposed to let him get rough again. And I just really don't like that message, and I think teens should protect themselves at all costs, both physically and emotionally. And it just seemed like a very demeaning kind of message. I understand the characters on Euphoria are supposed to be super broken, headed for a crash, but and they're not supposed to be living a good life, and that's why all this drug use and all this promiscuity is that they think it's paradise, but it's really a horror show. I understand that, but I think it comes a little bit too close to making their lifestyle seem like this awesome music video, and that teenagers should try to live up to their social life, and if not do drugs, then at least the promiscuity and just the characters' whole lives are sex and drugs in the show basically. And yeah, I just don't like how close it came. I would prefer teens get the message that being a drug addict is just this horrible thing that you never ever do. And I'm worried that people who idolize a character like Ruse, when they watch it, if it would make them more likely to want to live like her. I'm not saying they're going to start taking drugs, but teens brains are very sensitive at that age, and I didn't. It just seemed a little bit too much to me, and I don't think we really need a show that shows that makes teen drug use look spectacular like this.